Have you ever been jolted awake by a sharp pain in your legs at night? If you're over 50, those leg cramps aren't just annoying, they could be a warning. Millions of seniors suffer silently from leg cramps, and most of them have no idea their diet is the cause. In the next few minutes, you'll discover 3 powerful foods that can stop cramps and help you sleep pain-free again. And don't forget subscribe for more stories like this. This time, it didn't let go quickly. I rubbed and rubbed, pressing the palm of my hand deep into the muscle like that would scare it away. No such luck. I hissed between my teeth, muttering every PG-rated word I could think of, and limped out of bed like a pirate with a peg leg. I leaned against the kitchen counter and reached for the cold water pitcher, hoping hydration might help, even though I knew it was too late. The pain had already made its mark. It was like a ghost that haunted not just the muscle, but the mood of the next day. That's the thing about leg cramps. When you're over 60, they aren't just painful. They're humiliating. You feel like your body is revolting, making decisions without your permission. And for me, it wasn't just about a leg. It was about control. About feeling like I still had it now. Let me make a little confession. I used to laugh at people who complained about nighttime leg cramps. Stretch more, I'd say. Drink some water, I'd smirk. I thought I was built different. But now, let's just say karma comes with a Charlie horse and a vengeance. That night, I couldn't go back to sleep. I sat at the kitchen table, in the dim light, massaging my leg, thinking about all the things I used to do without hesitation: hiking, cycling, dancing like a fool at my niece's wedding. Those things seemed far away now, like someone else's stories. And maybe that's what scared me the most, not the pain, but the shrinking of my life, the edges closing in, the horizon getting smaller. Oddly enough, I remembered a conversation I had with my grandson weeks ago. He had asked, "Grandpa, do you know how to do a backflip?" I told him no, but that I used to be able to touch my toes without sounding like I was giving birth. He laughed, not understanding what I meant. But I did. I missed feeling good in my body. I missed the version of me that could trust his legs. That night, I made a silent promise. If I had to live with this aging body, I would at least fight to understand it better. No more brushing it off, no more excuses. I was going to find out what was going on inside my legs, and I was going to do something about it. I started simple. I wrote down everything I ate that day: toast and jam, coffee, always black, a turkey sandwich for lunch, pasta for dinner, not a vegetable in sight, and water. Maybe 1 glass. No banana, no magnesium, no hydration plan. Just routine, easy. Lazy meals. My body had probably been screaming for help long before it cramped. Looking down at my leg, still sore, I sighed. "You win," I whispered. "Let's fix this." And with that, I opened my laptop, dimmed the brightness to avoid waking the whole house, and typed in the words, "How to stop leg cramps in seniors." I didn't know it yet, but that little search would lead me on a very curious journey involving old men at farmers' markets, soccer coaches with magnesium secrets, and tart cherry juice that I almost threw out before I drank it. But that's all ahead. For now, I just knew I was tired of waking up in pain, tired of pretending it didn't matter, and tired of being afraid to go to sleep because of something as ridiculous as a leg muscle that had developed a cruel sense of humor. That was the night I began listening to my body like it was an old friend who hadn't spoken in years, but had a lot to say if I was willing to sit still long enough to hear it. The next morning, I walked with a limp and a mission. The pain from the night before still echoed through my calf, but it was a dull reminder now, not the sharp stab it had been. I dressed slowly, pulled on my old loafers, and told myself this wasn't going to be another day of just dealing with it. I was going to find an answer, or at least start trying. There's a small farmer's market that pops up in town every Tuesday. I hadn't been in months, maybe a year, but that morning the air was cool, the sun polite, and I figured if I was going to learn what my body needed, maybe the people selling food with dirt still on it could teach me more than the internet ever could. I wandered past stalls of tomatoes and herbs, honey and homemade soap, but it was the fruit table that caught my eye. The bananas sat in the center like golden promises, no bruises, no spots, just that perfect ripeness that's rare in grocery store stock. That's when I heard a voice behind me say, "You get cramps too." I turned. A man about my age, maybe, a few years older, was picking out bananas with the care of someone choosing weapons for battle. He had a slow confidence, like someone who'd been through the same war I was just now realizing I was in. I nodded. Every night now, wakes me up like clockwork. He raised an eyebrow, handed me a bunch of bananas, and said, "Start with one of these in the morning, potassium." Trust me, I did trust him, oddly. Maybe it was his tone, or maybe I just needed to believe someone knew what they were doing, because I clearly didn't single quotes too. Now, here's an odd little detail I can't explain. When he walked away, I noticed he had one red sock and one grey sock. Intentional, a mistake. I don't know, but something about it stuck with me. Maybe because I was starting to feel like everything mattered now. Every choice, every bite, even every sock. Back at home, I stared at the bananas like they might explode. If I touched them wrong, I'd never really liked bananas unless they were in a smoothie. Too mushy, too sweet. But I peeled one, took a bite, and it wasn't bad. My body didn't throw a parade, but something in my gut whispered, yes, more of this, please. I started reading more about potassium. Turns out, it's not just bananas. Sweet potatoes, spinach, even avocados are loaded with the stuff. But bananas, they're simple, convenient, portable, no washing, no peeling tools. Just grab and go. I remembered a time when food was fuel. Back when I jogged every morning, played pickup basketball on Sundays, and didn't think twice about my joints or muscles. Those days weren't gone. I told myself they were just buried under years of sitting still and eating like my body would always bounce back. I looked down at my leg again, still sore, still stiff, but maybe not as angry as before. Maybe that banana was a start, a message to my muscles. I hear you now. That afternoon, I sliced another banana onto my oatmeal. Felt like something a yoga mom in a blog post would do, but hey, I wasn't proud. I was in pain and ready to experiment. I even bought a notebook. On the cover, it said Daily Strength. I rolled my eyes when I saw it, but I bought it anyway. I wrote down what I ate. Banana in the morning, oatmeal at lunch, and a vow to drink more water and before bed. As I peeled my third banana of the day's third eye, paused and said out loud, "Please don't cramp tonight. Not to the banana. Not to the universe. Just to myself." That night the cramp didn't come. I wasn't sure if it was a fluke or a miracle, but I slept deeply, dreamlessly. I woke up with both legs quiet, like they were finally at peace. Maybe it was the potassium. Maybe it was the decision to care. Either way, I was onto something, and I was hungry to find more. The next morning, I woke up without the usual ache in my calf. I almost didn't believe it. I stretched my leg out slowly, like defusing a bomb, half expecting the cramp to leap out and laugh in my face. But nothing, just silence. Gentle, blessed. Silence in my muscles. Encouraged, I got out of bed and shuffled into the kitchen, feeling just a little bit taller than I had the day before. I opened the fridge, looking for something to go with my banana, and that's when I saw it right at the back, half buried behind a jar of mustard and an old container of leftover stew, a bottle of bright green pickle juice. My sister had left it behind weeks ago after some odd snack experiment involving pickles and peanut butter. I'd laughed at her then. Now, I stared at that bottle like it might be holding a secret. Now, here's the strange part, and you can judge me for it later, but I heard her voice in my head, clear as day, you know. Pickle juice helps with cramps. I'd rolled my eyes at that line before. I mean, really. Vinegar and salt as a miracle cure. But sleep-deprived and sore in the soul, I figured, why not? I poured a little into a shot glass, took a whiff. It smelled like regret. I drank it anyway. The taste hit like a slap-sharp, salty, almost electric. It made my cheeks tighten and my eyes water. But afterward, I felt something curious. Not relief exactly, but alertness, like my body had taken notice. A jolt of wake. Up, maybe. So I called my sister. "You and your pickle juice," I said as she answered. She laughed. "Told you. Athletes have been using it for years. There's something about the electrolytes in vinegar that helps muscles recover fast." Asked her why she'd never mentioned it sooner. She said she assumed I wouldn't listen. And she was probably right. Funny, isn't it? How sometimes the things that can help us most come from the people we're quickest to dismiss. I made a mental note to listen more to the strange suggestions. The folk remedies, the throwaway comments from loved ones that might hold more wisdom than I gave credit for. I drank a second shot that afternoon, just to test the theory. Didn't love it any more than the first, but it didn't make me gag. So that was progress. Later that day, as I watered my houseplants and wiped down the counters, I noticed something. My legs felt lighter. Not just pain-free, but like they were humming with quiet energy, subtle but real. I hadn't felt that in a long time. Here's a confession I haven't told anyone before. Used to think aging meant the end of surprises. Like the body settled into a slow decline and nothing new or good could be expected. But those little moments of banana, a glass of brine were opening doors I didn't know were still available to me. Doors to better mornings, maybe even two. Something like recovery. There's one more odd thing I should tell you. That night, after my banana and my second dose of pickle juice, I had the weirdest dream. I was floating in a swimming pool full of green water, laughing, splashing like a child. And my legs were weightless, moving without hesitation. I woke up smiling, no cramp, no panic, just a strange sense of peace. I wrote it down in my little daily strength notebook. Pickle juice, 2 shots. No cramp, dreamed I could swim again. I underlined it twice. I don't know if it was placebo or if my body was genuinely responding, but the shift was undeniable. And when you've lived through sleepless nights, full of pain and dread, even the smallest change can feel like magic. So now I had 2 tools, bananas and pickle juice. A strange pairing, maybe. But my legs were quiet, and my sleep was sound, and I was just getting started. A few days passed in this new rhythm: bananas in the morning, a shot of pickle juice in the afternoon, and peace at night. It was simple, almost too simple, but something inside me had shifted, like I was slowly climbing out of a fog I didn't even know I'd been living in. One morning, as I sat by the window with my notebook open and the sun barely stretching its arms across the lawn, I asked myself, what else have I ignored? That's when I thought of magnesium. Now, I'd heard the word plenty of times. It was in the multivitamins I never finished. It was on labels at the health store I sometimes wandered into but rarely bought anything from. But I didn't know what it did. Not really. I pulled out my phone and started digging. Turns out, magnesium is like that quiet friend at a party, unassuming but crucial. It helps with muscle function, nerve health, and yes, muscle cramps. And the body can't store it well, so if you're not getting enough daily, you start feeling tired, twitchy, and yes, crampy. I flipped through my pantry, hunting for anything that might contain it. And there they were, almonds. A dusty bag in the back of the cupboard from some healthy phase I never followed through on. I popped a few in my mouth. Crunchy, creamy, satisfying in a way I hadn't remembered. That afternoon, I walked to the store and picked up a bag of pumpkin seeds too, along with some dark chocolate, because apparently that's a sneaky magnesium-rich food too. I didn't need much convincing on that one. Now, here's a funny little moment. As I stood in line at checkout, this kid, maybe 10, wearing a dinosaur hoodie, turned to me and said, "Pumpkin seeds are gross." Just blurted it out, like a fact of life. I smiled. Maybe, but they might just save my legs. He blinked. Your legs? Long story, I said, chuckling, and gave him a wink. Back home, I toasted a handful of pumpkin seeds and sprinkled them on my salad. They added crunch and a kind of nutty depth. Not bad at all. And with each bite, I pictured tiny reinforcements marching into my muscles, patching up whatever had been worn down over the years. That night, I had another dream. This time I was running effortlessly along a coastline I couldn't recognize. The wind was sharp, the sky full of stars, and I remember thinking in the dream, my legs have never felt this free. I woke up and stretched instinctively. Still no cramp. Now here's the confession. I started to look forward to bedtime, not just for the rest, but for the chance to see if I could make it through the night untouched, like a game, like a test. And with every success, I trusted my body just a little bit more. In my notebook I wrote, banana, pickle juice, magnesium, no cramps for 5 nights. Feeling stronger, it felt like a miracle. But really, it was just food I'd been walking past my whole life, too busy or too skeptical to give it a second thought. Funny how healing doesn't always come with fireworks or a diagnosis. Sometimes it's in a crunch, in a shot of brine, in the small choices we make when no one's watching. I told my sister, and she laughed. You, eating seeds and writing in a journal. Who are you? I don't know, I said, but I like him. She paused, then added, I do too, and I meant it. I really did. It was a week in, and I hadn't had a single cramp. Not one. I don't know if you've ever lived in fear of something your body does to you, spontaneous, painful, unpredictable. But when that fear starts to fade, it feels like you're breathing in color again. One evening, as I sipped some chamomile tea and stared out at the quiet street, I started thinking about water. Just plain old water. I used to be terrible about drinking it. I'd nurse 1 glass all day, and then maybe sip something fizzy with dinner. I never thought twice about it. But now I started wondering, what if dehydration had been part of the problem all along? I remembered reading that muscle cramps often stem from not just missing nutrients, but being low on fluids, especially for folks our age. The body's thirst signals dull with time. You don't realize you're running dry until your body starts waving red flags like seizing muscles. So the next morning, I did something wild. I brought out this old water bottle I'd forgotten in the back of a kitchen drawer, filled it, and made myself a promise: drink 2 full bottles today. No excuses. The first went fast, easier than I expected. Maybe because I felt a little thrill, like I was in control, like I was turning into someone who knew what they were doing. The second one took longer. By late afternoon, I found myself sipping just for the sake of it, but it became a quiet little ritual. A pause, a chance to sit still for a moment and say, "Hey, I'm taking care of you. Here's my confession. I never thought hydration would be emotional, but that's what it became." Every sip reminded me that I wasn't neglecting myself anymore. I wasn't just reacting to pain, I was preventing it. Later that week, I had dinner with an old friend. Dan, we hadn't caught up in months, maybe longer. He noticed I passed on the wine and poured myself another glass of water instead. "You training for something?" he joked. "Yeah," I said, "a cramp-free night." He laughed, but when I told him more, his smile faded into curiosity. "You've really had leg cramps that bad? Waking me -up-at-2-a.m. bad?" He nodded, slowly. "I've been getting those too. Figured it was just age that hit me hard." How many of us were just accepting pain as inevitable, as if getting older meant surrendering to suffering. We talked for hours, and when he left, he said he'd tried the banana and maybe the pickle juice, even if it tastes like gym socks, he added with a grin. That night, I poured another glass of water before bed. A little cold, no ice. It felt like a reward. Something small, but consistent. I sat on the edge of the bed, rubbed some lotion into my cavasand, thought about the life I was building. Not a big, dramatic transformation, just little shifts, simple things, easy to overlook, easy to dismiss, but they were working. There's one more odd note from that week. I started waking up before my alarm, rested light, as if my body had recalibrated to a new rhythm. I wrote in my notebook again, hydrated all day, slept through the night, no cramp, felt joy when I stretched. And I underlined joy twice. I wasn't chasing perfection. I wasn't expecting miracles. But every day I drank more water, ate better, and paid attention to my body. I felt just a little bit more me. That's the part no one tells you about getting older. You don't lose yourself overnight. You misplace tiny pieces. You let go of small habits. And one day you realize you don't feel like you anymore. But then something small brings you back, like a glass of water, or a night without pain, or an old friend reminding you that you're not the only one figuring it out. It's never too late to feel better. I remember the morning I finally stretched in bed without bracing for pain. It was so subtle, so ordinary, that for a moment I didn't even notice it. My arms reached up, my toes pointed, calves lengthened, and nothing happened. No jolt, number, tightening, no cramp. I stayed there, motionless, breathing in the quiet. That's when I knew I had to talk about potassium, of course. I'd already been eating bananas, and I knew they were But it turns out bananas are just one piece of the puzzle. There's another food, one I hadn't taken seriously before. That's even more potent. Avocados. Yep. The same creamy green fruit that ends up on toast in cafes full of hipsters. I used to roll my eyes at avocado everything. Thought it was just a trend. But as I dug deeper, I found out that avocados aren't just a treat, they're loaded with potassium, magnesium, healthy fats, and fiber. Basically, nature's multivitamin dressed up as a brunch item. So I gave in. I bought a couple and sliced one up for lunch. Added a bit of lemon, some salt, and a dash of black pepper. The first bite was unexpectedly rich like butter, but earthy. I didn't expect to like it that much. I didn't expect it to make me feel like I was eating something alive. By the third day of adding avocado to my meals, I felt a smoothness in my energy. Not a spike, not a crash, just a steady hum. I don't know how to explain it better than that. Like my nerves had dialed down the static and tuned into something calm. Now. Here's a funny little side note. I tried mashing avocado onto a rice cake. It was a disaster. The rice cake crumbled, avocado went everywhere, and I ended up eating it with a spoon while standing over the sink. Not my proudest culinary moment, but hey, we try. Meanwhile, I noticed something else. My walks were getting longer, not intentionally. I'd head out thinking I'd just circled the block, but then I'd drift further, around the lake, down a new path, even up a small hill I used to avoid. One evening, I stood at the top of that hill, watching the sun turn the trees gold, and I realized my legs weren't just pain-free. They were strong. I whispered, "Thank you," to no one in particular. Maybe to the avocado, maybe to myself. Here's the confession. I used to believe I was fragile, that aging meant accepting weakness. But it doesn't. It means learning to move differently, to eat smarter, to listen harder. And potassium, real potassium, not just the pill Formby, came a quiet partner in that lesson. It's not just bananas. It's sweet potatoes, spinach, beans, yogurt, and of course, my new green friend, the avocado. I called my niece, who's into fitness, and told her what I was learning. She laughed and said, "Uncle, you sound like a wellness guru." "Don't jinx it," I said. But secretly, I liked the sound of that. In my notebook, I wrote, "Added avocado. Legs feel firm, walked further, breathing easier," and then I did something silly. I drew a tiny avocado with a smiley face beside it, because why not? I was feeling good, really good. No, avocados didn't save my life, but they gave me back part of it. And when something helps you reclaim your strength one bite at a time, deserves a thank you. So here's to potassium, to movement, to believing that the second half of life doesn't have to be the slow fade we've been told. It can be strong and green and a little bit messy. It was a cool, misty morning when I opened the fridge and saw it, the last jar of pickles. It had been tucked behind the almond milk and forgotten leftover rice, just sitting there, waiting, and I smiled, because now I understood. Pickle juice. It still sounded bizarre to say it out loud, like some old folk remedy your grandfather would swear by. But over the past few weeks, I'd learned not to dismiss anything too quickly, especially when it came to leg cramps. I had first stumbled upon the idea late one night, scrolling through an article while massaging my calves. Pickle juice, it said, may relieve cramps faster than water. At the time, I scoffed, but something about the sharpness, the weirdness of it, stuck with me. So I'd tried it. just a small gulp, chilled after dinner. The taste was exactly what you'd expect, so tangy and bracing, like a slap to the taste buds. I nearly coughed the first time, but there was something oddly satisfying about it. The next morning, no cramps. Coincidence, I told myself, but I did it again the next night, and the one after that. Always a small sip, never more than an ounce or two, and night after night, my sleep became deeper, unbroken, dream-filled. What I learned later was that it's not just the sodium or the vinegar, it's how the body responds. Scientists believe pickle juice can trigger a reflex in the mouth that calms overactive nerves. It doesn't just hydrate it, resets something. I never thought I'd be one of those people who kept pickle juice in a cup by the bed. But here I was, treating it like medicine. That final jar in the fridge felt symbolic, like the end of an old chapter. I lifted it carefully, twisted it open, and took a sniff. Still sharp, still pungent, still powerful. A part of me wanted to call Dan again, just to laugh about how we'd both become believers in bananas, avocados, and now brine. But I also knew this wasn't just about food. It was about choosing to care again, choosing to believe that small changes make a big difference. Here's the odd note. I never expected to write in my journal, "Pickle juice works." Still weird, but I'm grateful. I underlined grateful, my confession. I was starting to love my routines. The sliced avocado on toast, the water bottle I now carried like a lucky charm, the quiet stretch before sleep, and yes, the briny gulp at night. These weren't chores anymore. They were acts of self-respect. One evening, while folding laundry, I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror. Not just older, but steadier. Softer around the edges, maybe, but stronger in ways no one could see. My legs felt grounded, like they remembered how to carry me without flinching. I paused, stared for a moment, and whispered, "Still here." Because sometimes that's the greatest victory. Not the marathon, not the big milestones, but the quiet return to ease, to sleep, to mornings without fear. I wrote one last thing in my notebook before heading to bed that night. Bananas, avocados, and pickle juice. 3 strange angels. 3 quiet healers. And I slept. No cramps, no jolts, just rest. There's a kind of peace that sneaks up on you, not loud, not triumphant, just a quiet, steady comfort. That's what this journey gave me. No single food is a magic cure, but some, when welcomed into your life with intention, can transform the way you move, sleep, and feel. Bananas with their easy sweetness, avocados with their gentle strength, and pickle juice with its sharp honesty, all of them showed me that healing doesn't have to be complicated. It can be found in small acts, in strange flavors, in routines that whisper, "You're worth taking care of." Leg cramps used to rule my nights. Now I barely remember them. Not because they vanished overnight, but because I slowly built a life they couldn't find comfort in. A life of balance, of nourishment, of listening. If you've ever woken up clutching your leg, breath held against the pain, you're not alone, but you're also not stuck. There are answers. You just have to be curious enough to search, and kind enough to stay the course. So tonight, before bed, maybe you'll pour yourself a little water. Maybe you'll reach for a banana instead of a cookie. Maybe you'll try something new, something that sounds strange but feels right. And maybe, just maybe, you'll stretch in bed tomorrow without a single jolt of pain. You deserve that kind of ease. You deserve to sleep. You deserve to feel strong again.